The wind howled through Blackthorn Ridge, a jagged scar of land in the heart of West Virginia, where the trees grew gnarled and the shadows seemed to breathe. It was October, and the air carried the bite of frost, the kind that sank into your bones and made you feel like you'd never be warm again. My name's Caleb Marsh, and I'm telling you this story because I lived it, or at least, I survived it. Most folks around here don't talk about the Hollow, not unless you get a few whiskeys in them, and even then they'll clam up if you press too hard. But I've got no choice. What happened to me, to my friends, to this God-forsaken place, it's gotta be told, even if it's just to warn you to stay the hell away. I was 27, working as a park ranger for the Monongahela National Forest. It wasn't glamorous long hours, crap pay, and tourists who thought leave no trace meant tossing their beer cans into the bushes. But I loved it. The forest was my home, my sanctuary. I'd grown up in Elkins, a small town nearby, and I knew every trail, every creek, every hollow. Or so I thought. Blackthorn Ridge was different. It wasn't on any map, not officially. You'd hear whispers about it from the old-timers, the ones who'd lived here since the coal mines were still open. They'd talk about a place where the trees grew wrong, where the ground felt like it was watching you. They called it the Hollow. I first heard about it from my grandpa, back when I was a kid. He was a logger, tough as nails, but he'd get this look in his eye when he talked about Blackthorn Ridge. "Stay clear, Caleb," he'd say, his voice low, like he was afraid something might hear. "Ain't nothing good in that place. It's hungry." I thought he was just spinning yarns, trying to scare me. But the way his hands shook when he lit his cigarette stuck with me. Fast forward to last fall, I was out on patrol with my buddy Ethan, another ranger, and Sarah, a biologist studying the local bat population. Ethan was a big guy, ex-Marine, always cracking jokes to hide how much he hated the dark. Sarah was quieter, sharp as a tack, with a knack for noticing things most folks missed, like the way the birds stopped singing when we got too close to certain parts of the forest. We were a good team, the three of us, and we'd spent countless nights camping under the stars, swapping stories and passing a flask of bourbon. That day, we were checking reports of illegal hunting near the edge of the forest. Some locals had called in, spooked about gunshots and strange lights in the woods. Nothing unusual. Poachers were a dime a dozen out here, but the coordinates they gave were deep in the backcountry, a place even I hadn't explored much. As we hiked, the air grew heavy, the kind of stillness that makes your skin crawl. The GPS started acting up, the screen flickering like it couldn't decide where we were. Ethan cursed, smacking the device against his palm. "Piece of junk," he muttered. "You sure we're going the right way, Caleb?" I checked my compass, but the needle was spinning lazily, like it had forgotten how to point north. "Yeah," I lied, squinting at the dense wall of trees ahead. "We're fine." Sarah stopped, her head tilted. "You hear that?" We froze. The forest was silent, no birds, no wind, nothing. Then, faint but unmistakable, came a sound like a low hum, vibrating through the ground. It wasn't natural, not like any animal or machine I'd ever heard. It felt alive. "Probably just a generator," Ethan said, but his voice was tight. "Some dumbass running a meth lab out here." Sarah shook her head. "That's not all, it's too organic." We pressed on, the hum growing louder, until we stumbled into a clearing that shouldn't have been there. The trees parted like they'd been pushed back, forming a perfect circle of bare earth. In the center was a pit, maybe 10 feet wide, its edges jagged like a wound in the ground. The air around it shimmered, like heat rising off asphalt, and that hum was coming from inside, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What the hell is this?" Ethan whispered, stepping closer. "Don't!" Sarah snapped, grabbing his arm. "Look at the ground." I followed her gaze. The dirt around the pit was littered with bonus-small ones, like birds or squirrels, but also larger ones, deer maybe, and something else, something that looked too human for comfort. They weren't scattered randomly. They formed patterns, spirals, and loops, like someone had arranged them. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now." But before we could move, the hum stopped. The silence was worse, heavy, and suffocating, like the world was holding its breath. Then, from the pit, came a sound of wet, scraping noise, like something dragging itself up from the dark. We ran. The next few hours were a blur. We crashed through the forest, branches tearing at our clothes, the GPS useless, the compass spinning like a top. Night fell, and the temperature plummeted. We were lost, and not just in the usual way. The stars were wrong, too bright, too many of them, and they seemed to pulse in time with that damn hum, which had started again, fainter but always there, like it was following us. We finally stopped to catch our breath, huddling under a rocky outcrop. Ethan was shaking, not from the cold, but from something else. "What was that thing?" he kept saying. "What the fuck was that?" Sarah was calmer, but her eyes were wide, darting to every shadow. "I don't know," she said, "but it's old, older than this forest, maybe older than the mountains." I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to believe we'd stumbled on some freak natural phenomenon, a gas vent or an earthquake sinkhole. But deep down, I knew better. I'd heard my grandpa's stories. The hollow wasn't just a place. It was something else, something that didn't belong here. "We need a plan," I said, trying to sound like I had a grip on things. "We'll wait till dawn, then head east. The sun'll guide us out." But dawn never came. The night stretched on, endless and wrong. The hum grew louder, and with it came whispers, not words. Not exactly, but fragments of sound that burrowed into your head. They weren't English, weren't any language I knew, but they carried meaning, like a warning or a promise. I saw things, two shapes in the dark, tall and thin, moving just out of sight. Ethan swore he saw eyes, glowing like embers, watching from the trees. Sarah said she felt something brush her neck, cold and slick, like a snake's tongue. We tried to keep moving, but the forest seemed to shift around us. Paths we'd taken looped back to the same spots, like the land was playing tricks. At one point, we found our own footprints, fresh in the dirt, leading in a circle. Ethan lost it then, screaming about how we were trapped, how the hollow wouldn't let us go. I had to grab him, shake him, tell him to shut up before something heard. Around what should have been morning, we found the clearing again. The pit was still there, but it looked different, wider, deeper. The bones around it rearranged into new patterns. And there were fresh ones, glistening with blood, like something had been here since we'd left. Sarah knelt by the edge, her hands shaking as she studied the bones. "These aren't random," she said. "They're a language, a ritual." "For what?" I asked, dreading the answer. She looked up, her face pale. "To wake something up." Before I could press her, Ethan screamed. He was staring into the pit, his eyes wide, his mouth moving like he was trying to speak but couldn't. I grabbed him, pulled him back, but he kept pointing, babbling about a face in the dark. I looked, and for a second I saw it. To a shape, vague and massive, shifting just below the surface like it was swimming in the earth itself. We ran again, but this time, the forest fought back. Roots seemed to rise under our feet, tripping us. Branches snapped at our faces, drawing blood. The whispers were louder now, a chorus of voices that seemed to come from inside our skulls. I heard my name, my grandpa's name, things I'd never told anyone. Sarah was crying, muttering about equations and patterns, like she was trying to solve the hollow with math. Ethan was worse. He'd gone quiet, his eyes vacant, like something had hollowed him out. We stumbled into another clearing, this one different. The ground was covered in strange markings, carved deep into the earth, glowing faintly with a sickly green light. In the center was a tree, ancient and twisted, its bark pulsing like a heartbeat. Hanging from its branches were things. Not bodies, not exactly, but shapes that looked like they'd once been human, stretched and warped, their faces frozen in silent screams. Sarah grabbed my arm. "We have to destroy it," she said, her voice frantic. "The tree, it's the heart of this place." I didn't argue. We scrambled for anything we could, Userox, branches, Ethan's lighter. But as we approached the tree, the ground shook, and the whispers became a roar. Shadows poured from the carvings, not solid, but not quite smoke, wrapping around us like tendrils. I felt them in my mind, cold and sharp, digging into memories, pulling out things I'd buried deep: my mom's death, my dad's drinking, the night I almost didn't make it home. Ethan broke first. He dropped to his knees, clawing at his face, screaming about eyes in the dark. Sarah tried to pull him up, but he shoved her away, hard enough that she hit the ground. Then he turned and ran, straight toward the tree, like it was calling him. I lunged after him, but the shadows were faster. They swallowed him whole, and when they parted, he was gone. No trace, no sound, just the hum, louder than ever. Sarah and I were alone now, backed against the tree, the shadows circling closer. She was muttering, her hands moving like she was writing in the air. "It's a cycle," she said. "The hollow feeds, it grows, it waits. We're not the first. We won't be the last." "Shut up," I snapped, grabbing her shoulders. "We're getting out of here." But she just looked at me, her eyes empty. "There is no out, Caleb. Not us." I don't know how long we fought. Hours, maybe days. Time didn't work right in the hollow. The shadows kept coming, and the tree kept pulsing, its roots curling toward us like fingers. I burned what I could, smashed what I couldn't, but it wasn't enough. Sarah was slipping, her mind unraveling under the weight of whatever she'd figured out. She kept talking about fractals, about the universe folding in on itself, about how the hollow wasn't a place, but a door. In the end, I made a choice. I don't know if it was the right one, but it was the only one I had left. I grabbed Sarah, dragged her away from the tree, and ran deeper into the forest, away from the pit, the tree, the bones. The shadows followed, but they were slower now, like they were tied to the clearing. We ran until we collapsed, until the hum faded, until the stars looked normal again. When I woke, Sarah was gone. No footprints, no sign of a struggle, just gone. I was alone, lying in a part of the forest I recognized, not far from the ranger station. My radio crackled to life, voices calling my name, saying they'd been looking for me for days. I stumbled back, half dead, and told them what I could lost in the woods. Bad storm, equipment failure. I didn't mention the hollow. I didn't mention Ethan or Sarah. I didn't mention the tree. They found Ethan's body a week later, or what was left of it. The coroner said it was a bear attack, but I saw the photos. No bear did that. Sarah's still missing. The official report says she wandered off, got lost, probably died of exposure. I know better. I quit the ranger service after that. Moved to Pittsburgh, got a job in a warehouse, tried to forget. But the hollow doesn't let go. I hear the hum sometimes, late at night, faint, but there. I see shadows move when they shouldn't. And last week, I found a bone on my doorstep, small and polished, carved with a spiral. I'm telling you this because you need to know. Blackthorn Ridge is still out there, and it's hungry. If you're ever in West Virginia, if you hear whispers about a place where the trees grow wrong, turn around. Don't look back. Don't listen to the hum, because once the hollow sees you, it never forgets.